Good evening. We will call our September 21st Kildover Hills Board of Commissioners meeting to order. If you would please rise and join us for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And before we head into our moment of silence, just a couple of things. First, it's with great sorrow that we've learned that our retired police lieutenant and current volunteer with our fire department, Sergeant Jim Mulford, passed away yesterday. We learned of that, so if you'll keep his family in your thoughts and prayers. And also, many of you know Jack McCombs, and his wife is battling cancer and is undergoing treatment, so please keep them in your thoughts, as well as Danielle James. So, and if with that, if we can join everybody for a moment of silence, please. Thank you. Okay, next on the agenda is the agenda approval.
So moved.
I will make a motion that we amend the agenda.
Okay.
We need to remove new business item number 5.
Okay, and may I also request with your motion that we consider not only removing agenda item number 5, but can we reverse the order of the public hearings and do public hearing number 2 first, and then 1? Any-
B and A.
So, no, just total public hearing number 2,
Financial contract.
the financing contract.
Oh, okay, I got
You
you.
want to make a
Sorry about
motion
that.
for both of those?
Yes, so I will amend my motion so that both of those are included. And to explain the removal of number 5, we want to pull that so that the changes identified by the CRS reviewer can be incorporated into this before we actually approve it here. So it'll come back to us, but that'll happen beforehand. So it'll come back. No need to worry.
Okay.
Not that you were.
All right, so we have a motion on the floor to amend the agenda, removing item number 5 and moving item number 2 for public hearing first, before item number 1. There's a motion?
I'll second.
Any further discussion or questions? All those in favor, please signal by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Great, thank you. Okay, and we will turn to our town attorney then to conduct our public hearings, and the first one being number 2.
There will be a public hearing conducted this evening by the Kildover Hills Board of Commissioners. The following rules of procedure will apply to the hearing. A public notice of the hearing was published in the newspaper and posted on the town bulletin boards in accordance with statutory requirements for the subject matter. A copy of the public notice has been filed with the town clerk for entry into the official record of the hearing. The town clerk will record all oral comments in a concise and brief manner. Written statements shall be recorded in a similar manner and made part of the record of the hearing and shall be submitted in full to the town clerk. Please limit your comments to matters relevant to the issue and to a time period of 3 minutes. A 5-minute exception will be made if there is a spokesperson for a group or if your statement is submitted in writing to the town clerk. All speakers must come to the microphone so that your statement will be taped. There will be no debates. Please identify yourself when you come forward. The public hearing will please come to order. This hearing is called for the purpose of the Kildover Hills Board of Commissioners to consider the following. A proposed financing contract. In accordance with the provisions of North Carolina General Statutes 168-20, a public hearing will be held regarding a refinancing contract on a loan originally obtained for construction and redevelopment improvements related to Phase 1 of the Kildover Hills Public Works Complex. The financing arrangement with BB&T is in an amount not to exceed $1,186,000 through October the 8th, 2015, with a fixed interest rate of 2% for a 5-year period. This arrangement was submitted by the BB&T Governmental Financing, 5130 Parkway Plaza Boulevard, Charlotte, NC, 28217. There is no applicable fee for the overall financing arrangements. I do not believe we have any individuals who have signed up to speak. None here. Would anybody like to speak on the matter? There being no further public comment on this item, at this time, the Board of Commissioners will conduct discussion to make their own comments prior to the public hearing being closed and action taken by the board.
Questions?
It's a no-brainer to me.
Yeah, I mean, this makes good fiscal sense. It's, we're taking the interest rate down, and we don't have any application fee for that or doing that for financing it. So it's just a way to save money for the town, which makes good sense. Probably why there's not a lot of discussion on this. Okay. Well, with that, a motion would be in order.
Oh. I make a motion that we approve the declaration of the official intent to reimburse expenditures, approve the attached resolution regarding the proposed refinancing of Yadkin Bank loan for the town of KDH, which authorizes application to the North Carolina Local Government Commission for approval of the BB&T financing package, and approve resolution approving financing terms for BB&T.
Thank you.
I'll second.
Any other discussion or comments? All those in favor, please signal by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. So we can move now to the public hearings under number 1.
All right. The second public hearing is called for the purpose of the Kill Hills Board of Commissioners to consider proposed amendments to Chapter 153 zoning. And I believe these are staff recommendations. Meredith, do you want me to break those down, A, B, and C? Are you presenting on these, or Greg is? Okay, do you want me to break them down, A, B, and C?
If you'd like.
Okay.
And just to introduce them briefly, and I'll go into some more detail before.
Very good. All right. A, Chapter 153.002, definitions and the addition of Chapter 153.083, regulate outdoor display to address regulation of outdoor display of merchandise.
Madam Mayor, would you like him to introduce all three or take them one at a time tonight?
I know the motions are going to be presented one at a time, so why don't we'll do one at a time.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Vernell. What we have here today is a culmination of years of work, I'd say over 10 years, Meredith, right? Of discussing outdoor display and regulation of outdoor display. And what we have tonight would actually define outdoor display and outdoor storage. And it also sets some standards for outdoor display and outdoor storage, and it exempts lumber yards, garden centers, automobile sales, service, and rentals from this particular regulation. And it was brought to us by the Community Appearance Commission lastly, and then it went through the Planning Board. And the Planning Board recommended on June 24th that the Board of Commissioners make a motion to adopt this with 2 items deleted. Well, the board actually put those 2 items back in and felt like that it was imperative that we look at the condition and the unwrapping or the wrapping of packaged materials as 2 items they wanted to consider with this ordinance. So that's what's for public hearing tonight. I'll be happy to answer any questions the board might have.
Okay. And did we have anyone sign up to speak?
No, ma'am.
No? Okay. Questions, comments? Well, you certainly can. That's great.
All right.
You're certainly welcome. Welcome, Sue.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Sue Kelly, 211 Sea Village Lane, on behalf of the Community Appearance Commission. And this won't be long, because Greg just said it very well. I don't know of anything in recent times that's had any better or lengthy discussion than this issue. So I really just stand up here to ask for your support, and also to say, of course, it is our hope that you will keep in the 2 items that the Planning Board chose to omit from their recommendation. We've raised this issue before about when stuff starts to look beat up, tattered. You know, it was part of our thing related to the flag stuff. We think it's an issue for the town to take some concern about, that things look decent and nice as much as possible. And that's the other reason why the next item, that the stuff be unpackaged. We hope that that would make having those in there would make the whole process better, make it look better. And just to say very quickly, this was worked on by a lot of really, really good people. One of the key things was done by Melinda Magowski and Chris Merrick of the Community Appearance Commission. Chris having a very big vested interest in this particular legislation, and also Meredith met with them to bring us a proposal that we felt we could finally present to the planning board and to you for your consideration. We think this will work. We think this will help our town look as fine as it can. And let me end by saying that we are having our next meeting this Thursday in this room at 8:30 in the morning. We welcome anybody coming to the meeting, and especially bringing us any ideas that you have for things that could make our town look the best possible. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Sue.
Thanks.
Board discussion, comments? Questions? I would just like to say thank you. There's several members of the Community Appearance Committee here. Thanks for all your work on this. And Sue, I appreciate you recognizing Chris. I think, when you take an industry that's willing to look and almost self-impose or self-suggest some restrictions on behalf of kind of the greater good for making our town, as you stated, look the best it can and put our best foot forward. I think that carries a lot of weight, and I appreciate all the work that's gone into this, and staff as well for guiding the process and whatnot. I think it's a solid ordinance that really does a great job defining the difference between storage and display. So businesses that need to store things have an avenue to do that, but that's not misconstrued as display, which display is really meant to help them sell their items and promote that. And we certainly don't want to take that opportunity away from the businesses as well. So I think great work on this.
Yes, I agree.
Well, if no other comments, then a motion would be in order.
I'll make a motion. I make a motion that the board approve the proposed zoning amendment 153.002 definitions and 153.083 regulate outdoor display. This proposed amendment to 153.002 and 153.083 to regulate outdoor display is consistent with all the comprehensive plans and other official adopted plans of the town of Kill Devil Hills that are applicable. The amendment is reasonable and in the public interest because it creates consistency within the commercial businesses wishing to display merchandise while ensuring merchandise is in good order and limits the clutter along the town's commercial corridors.
There's a motion. Is there a second?
I second that.
Any other comments, discussion? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, thanks. We'll move on to number B, or letter
Sub-
B.
Okay. Subsection B of proposed amendments to Chapter 153 zoning. Chapter 153.176N and Y, commercial zone permitted uses. This is to modify pool and hot tub sales to eliminate restriction on outdoor display. All right, I'll turn it over to Mr. Lloyd.
Thank you, Mr. Vernell. Well, this is necessary for two reasons, and the first reason is because of what you just approved. And heretofore, hot tub sales and had a prohibition on outdoor storage and display. And now that we have an ordinance that regulates outdoor storage and display, the one that's particular to this particular use needs to go away and be consistent with the rest of the time. And the second idea is it eliminates some redundancy in our current ordinance, and that's pretty much a housekeeping effort. So again, the planning board recommended this to be approved. I think it was on the 24th as well. I'm sorry, 21st. And staff recommends it be approved with the attached consistency statement.
Okay, thank you. Anyone sign up to speak? This, okay. Wish to speak. Any questions, comments? Okay, again, makes sense and gets things in order. A motion would be in order.
I'll make a motion to approve the proposed zoning amendment 153.176N and Y and commercial zone permitted uses, modified pool and hot tub sales to eliminate restrictions on outdoor display. And it is the proposed amendment to 153.176N and Y, commercial zone permitted uses, modified pool and hot tub sales to eliminate restrictions on outdoor display, is consistent with all the comprehensive plans and other official adopted plans of the town of Kildover Hills that are applicable. The amendment is reasonable and in the public interest because it creates consistency within the commercial businesses.
Okay, there's a motion. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, any comments, discussion? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, and now subsection C.
Subsection C of the proposed amendments to Chapter 153 zoning. Chapter 153.356, dimensional requirements and development standards to require a combination of lots for single development.
Excuse me, keeping up with my technology here. This ordinance amendment is, it came to us basically through conversations with our municipal attorney, Steve Michael, and what his advice was is that to allow development on multiple lots, and we have some small ones in town, that where people may take 2 or maybe 3 and combine them together for single development, that we have a way to either have a legal agreement or a recombination plat, and that would eliminate the, in effect, building over lot lines and building over setback lines. So this has been reviewed by Steve Michael, and we recommend it for approval tonight to eliminate the potential for nonconformities by allowing people to build on these smaller lots together. And the planning board recommended this on July 21st, and staff recommends approval of this in the attached consistency statement.
Okay, thank you. Anyone sign up? No one signed up to speak? Does anyone want to speak? Okay, comments, questions?
Makes sense.
No, it's a good idea.
Great. Okay, then a motion would be in order.
I'll make a motion that we approve proposed amendment 153.356, dimensional requirements and development standards to require a combination of lots for single development. This proposed amendment is consistent with our statement, with all comprehensive plans and other official adopted plans. The amendment is reasonable and in the public interest because it reduces nonconformities and requires structures to be built in a legal manner, not crossing lot lines.
There's a motion. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Any other comments, questions? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, thank you. Okay, we will now move on to the first time set aside this evening for public comment. This is an opportunity for anyone in the audience who wishes to bring any topic of concern or interest to the board. We do ask that if you're presenting as an individual, if you try to limit your comments to 3 minutes. If you're presenting on behalf of a group, if you could try to keep those comments to 5 minutes, please. Is there anyone that signed up for public comment tonight? No. Okay, is there anyone that wishes to speak from the floor? Quiet group tonight, okay. No one else? No one? Okay. All right, we'll keep moving on then. Maybe by the end, if you have something, you can share it with us. We'll move on then to new business, and the first item under new business is David Alberg, the superintendent of the Monitor National Marine Sanctuary, is here to share a presentation. Welcome.
Thank you very much, Mayor and members of the council. Thank you for the opportunity to speak to you tonight. We are in a, I wanted to really take the opportunity to introduce our organization to the community of Kill Devil Hills. The Monitor National Marine Sanctuary is a area about 16 miles off the coast of Cape Hatteras, North Carolina, that protects the shipwreck of the Civil War ironclad USS Monitor. And the sanctuary has been basically in your backyard for about 40 years, but we have been trying to do a better effort to reach out to the community, look for opportunities to partner, and explain a little bit more about the history of the site and talk about what we've been doing in the community for the last 40 years. So in front of you I provided a packet of information filled with outreach materials that we give to members of the public at outreach events and if they write to us. And I wanted to highlight a couple of them and talk a little bit about how we came to be and who we are. We work for an agency called the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration. Most people know us through the Weather Service, but under the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration is a group called the National Ocean Service, and underneath that umbrella is an office called the Office of National Marine Sanctuaries. And basically, we protect 14 special places around the world that are within the marine environment, offshore. These are areas that have been set aside by Congress because of their biodiversity, their archaeological resources, and for a number of other reasons. But the very first one was established in 1975, just about a year and a half after the discovery of the USS Monitor, at the request of the governor of North Carolina to NOAA to find a way to protect this shipwreck, which was outside of state waters and actually was on the high seas at the time. And so for 40 years, our office, our primary focus has been to preserve and protect that wreck. But in the last 15, 20 years, we've been much more ambitious in terms of trying to find ways to bring the shipwreck virtually and literally out of the water and put it in communities and help get people that aren't scuba divers or aren't fishermen access to this. So between 1998 and 2002, about 200 tons of the shipwreck, the revolving gun turret, the engines, and about 1,500 other artifacts were recovered. Through a public vetting process, the Mariners Museum in Newport News, Virginia was determined the best equipped facility to conserve these artifacts. And as they come out of conservation, many of them go on display at the Mariners Museum, but many of them also have been designated to come back to North Carolina once we have a facility that is can take care of them and accommodate them. So NOAA has been working since really since the mid-90s with the graveyard of the Atlantic Museum down in Hatteras Village, to when that facility was originally a private institution and now it's a state facility. We provided $2 million to help build the museum, and more recently have provided about $750,000 worth of funding to help get them going in terms of their exhibit development. We hope that by the end of this year, we'll have a permanent world-class exhibit design done, and then we'll be working with the state, hopefully, to see something in, we're still hopeful that maybe in the 16 budget, there'll be some money for construction. If not, we'll, I know the state is anxious to see that hopefully get into the 17 budget. But in the meantime, until that happens, we've been doing other things. So in your packet, one example of the way we've been trying to work with businesses and with divers, you'll see a series of plastic dive slates. We have been focusing beyond just the Monitor on other pieces of maritime history off the coast of North Carolina, primarily in the area of World War II for about the last 8 years. So as we have been studying and trying to get a better understanding of what shipwrecks lie off of the coast, we've produced things like this to help promote access to them, but responsible access, to try to help businesses. These are provided free of charge to local dive shops or individuals. They provide a little history of the shipwreck, and in the back is sort of a travel log, if you go there, what you'll see and a little bit about the laws that protect it. We've produced reports like this one, which is a document you can get from our office, the Graveyard of the Atlantic, an overview of North Carolina's maritime cultural landscape, to better understand and sort of encapsulate from NOAA's perspective the rich maritime heritage of North Carolina as a sort of a first step in finding ways that we can help promote that, not just to the visitors that come here, but beyond the state's boundaries, to try to get more visitation to help support local economies, help the local communities. And one of the byproducts that came out of that was a series of videos, which can be downloaded off of YouTube, or you can get them off of our website. It's a virtual maritime heritage trail along Highway 12 with about 10 stops that have a 2 or 3 minute vignette about World War II, the Monitor, the fish and wildlife, and the ecosystems that are there on the island. And we worked very carefully with a local North Carolina filmmaker, and these are also downloaded onto iPads that you can get at the museum down in Hatteras Village. And the idea is that we'll continue to add these videos further up the road past Whalebone Junction and further south into other coastal communities along North Carolina. Our work on World War II resulted in National Geographic doing a 1-hour special that aired, I guess, last year on World War II and the Battle of the Atlantic. This video was one of the highest rated programs that National Geographic aired during their Explorers Week. And again, the idea here is to help people that don't live in the community understand the great rich history that's here as a way to try to help support the local economies. One of the last things I'll talk about is that as we are looking forward to the future and dealing with the monitor, one of the things that came up in the development of our management plan in 2013 was the potential for expansion of the monitor sanctuary as a way to create more of a memorial and to promote more of these wrecks on a grander scale. So it is our hope that we'll begin public scoping meetings on what that might look like sometime this fall, what shipwrecks it would include, what would be the rules. But one thing we've heard loud and clear is that access is really important, that we want to do this in a way that is beneficial to fishermen, it's beneficial to the scuba diving community, but also, maybe more important, to the people that don't scuba dive and the people that won't necessarily get in the water, try to find ways to capture and promote these stories. So I gave you in the packet a copy of one of our other sanctuaries management plan, the Thunder Bay National Marine Sanctuary. This is up in Alpena, Michigan in the Great Lakes. It's co-managed by the state of Michigan and NOAA. But of all the sanctuaries in the system, it was established on a model that really promotes positive access, people getting to the site, and this would probably be the model that we would look to base any potential expansion on. So I know it's a lot of information in just a couple minutes, so maybe most importantly, you've got my card, and if there are any questions in the future from the public or members of the council or the local government, please feel free to give me a call anytime, and I'll be happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Thank you, David.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Anyone have any questions at this time?
The video you referred to, is that available on National Geographic website, do you know?
It must be, because that's where I bought this one. Yeah, I know it's on Netflix, and in fact, I'll leave this with you guys. I've got a number of copies, but it's Hitler's Secret Attack on America. And, you know, I think for me, one of the things that's been most interesting is that the history that those folks that have grown up in this area know sort of matter-of-factly. You don't have to get very far off the island to begin to find people that never heard about the U-boat wars right off the coast and who are really amazed. And I think that we found a number of smaller stories within this effort that tie together towns in Montana and other places through people and pieces of this history that really help different communities to connect here to the Outer Banks that has been very successful.
Great.
Wow, thank you.
Thank you so much for
Thank you.
Thank you, David.
coming to share this with us, and it's recorded, so hopefully the people that will watch later, I think it's, I'm sure, enlightening for some folks, but it's amazing the natural treasures we have around here, and so it's great. I appreciate you taking your time.
Excellent, thank you, and I'll leave this here.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Great.
Next, under new business, item number 2, Eddie Goodrich is here to discuss the patent landscape and market evaluation report conversion process, septic to sewer with water treatment. Welcome, Eddie.
My name's Eddie Goodrich. Thank y'all for hearing me, and if you ever get tired of it, just let me know. I won't take offense to it. Mike Robinson and I were down in Ocracoke, and we were talking about problems of a small village. And I'll use them as an example because I don't really want to use anybody in Dare County or particularly this town or any other town for that matter. And Ocracoke is unique in many respects by having what's called Silver Lake, which is actually a harbor. But they don't have any land left. In other words, they don't have a method to treat sewage and dispose of it. They don't have, with the exception of the septic tanks, which everybody knows they're not working down there because of the water table and it's all low-lying land. But for them, if they even tried to go in and find a piece of land to build a plant and dispose of it, it's not there. They don't have it. So Mike and I came up with the idea of decentralized disposal, which by using the existing septic tanks and bringing the water back and disposing of it where it's being disposed of already, but now you're dealing with treated water instead of untreated wastewater. That's really the only thing that'll work down there. So when we came up with that idea, we started working on it, and I contacted an attorney was kind enough to put me in touch with Keenan Flagler School of Business at the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill, and for free, they did the research for me, and they thought it was fairly important. They said that their county wasn't one of the counties that they were dealing with economic development, one of the 18 counties, I believe they said it was, but they thought it was important enough that it would affect all the other 18 counties, so they basically dropped everything and did the research to make sure that it hadn't been done anywhere else. And it hadn't been except in China. Somebody in China had done a conversion process. So let me, I'll give you a couple of things here. I won't need to give you too much stuff because it's a very simple process. And there's no need to try to make it any more complicated than it is. It's been presented to Division of Water Resources, it's been presented to Department of Health and Human Services, and they've made some comments here, and I'll be glad to give y'all a copy of it. But first, let me go over the process. This can be done anywhere in the world, for that matter. Conversion relates to a system and a method of wastewater treatment and the preferred method of decentralized disposal of the treated wastewater. What that means is pretty simply, if you've got 1 million gallons of treated wastewater, do you want to dispose of it on 100 acres or 1,000 acres? Well, obviously, the more land you use to dispose of it and the less you apply to the ground, the less goes in the groundwater and the safer it is. It further provides a system and method for converting existing septic wastewater systems to a wastewater treatment plant system by converting a septic tank to a treated wastewater holding tank, wherein the holding tank is located at or adjacent to the wastewater source and connecting a distribution line from the holding tank to the use recipient for non-potable water such as landscape irrigation, washing cars, boats, and it reduces the use and the cost of potable water by using the existing drain field. Basically, all that really means is that the state of North Carolina, the Adair County Health Department or any health department already has what I would call an implied easement on the area set aside for the drain field and repair area. They have control over that. You can't build on it. That's what it's designed for. And the difference is now it's being used to dispose of untreated wastewater. What this does is take the wastewater from the house down the street to a plant, treat it, and then bring it back, and you're using the same land that you were using to dispose of the untreated wastewater. I don't think there's any doubt, and the Division of Water Resources and Health and Human Services agree that by doing this and using that water for non-potable purposes like landscape irrigation, I don't know how many of you irrigate your yard, but it can cost you $100 a month, Steve. It's terribly expensive. And it's a waste of potable water and a waste of the town's water when you can reuse this water over and over. All wastewater treatment, anything that has to do with sewage has good and bad. The septic tanks simply don't, regardless of what anybody says, they're putting sewage in the water table. The state of North Carolina requires a 50-foot separation between the septic system and drain field and wetlands. But yet, the health department requires only an 18-inch separation between the septic drain lines and the water table. And that doesn't make any sense at all to me. And I don't think water runs sideways, I think it goes down. Basically, where we live, land is terribly expensive, and to be able to buy enough property to dispose of wastewater After you treat it, it's a terribly expensive process, and this overcomes that. The system advantageously avoids the need for large and very expensive land, as I just stated. It preserves open space, reduces potable water consumption, therefore reducing costs, takes advantage of existing disposal systems infrastructure. It avoids the negative aspects of septic systems, including risk of standing water. You could also use this system to collect rainwater off of the roof of houses, which will cut down on, if you have a 5,000 square foot lot and a 1,000 square foot house and a 1,000 square foot roof, then when it rains, you would collect 20% of the rainwater and eliminate some of the stormwater management problems. So Greg, if you'll just put that page we talked about. That shows where we are today, where you have a structure and a septic tank and a drain field and a repair area. And the next one will show you how this system would work. Now this is all exaggerated in the size of it and the distances and everything. But basically, the wastewater comes out of the house, it goes to a treatment plant, wherever it is, could be anywhere. And then it goes back to a holding tank, and then it goes into drain field or leach field, and then you can pull it out of the holding tank and use it for irrigation purposes or any other purpose. Here's also, if you will, the lady that helped me with this. If you'll circulate that. She's the expert. She's the scientist, not me. And I'm really not here to ask the town to do anything today other than plan for the future. Because without a plan for the future, it's impossible to go to the state of North Carolina or the federal government and ask them for money. Because they're gonna wanna know what are you gonna do with the money. I do know that $18 million was granted from the U.S. Department of Agriculture last year to Eastern North Carolina for water and sewer infrastructure. It's a very high priority for the state and federal government. And I'll ask if any questions you may have, I'll be glad to help you answer them.
Question?
I guess my question is, what's your big goal? What are you thinking? Are you trying to get the entire county on this? Or are you thinking about just Kill Devil Hills? What are you thinking?
Well, one of the really beautiful parts of this is you don't have to do it everywhere, you do it where you need it. And I mean, for instance, if when you go up and kill Nag's Head up on Villa Dunes Drive, there's no need to do anything up there. They're all 20 feet above sea level. There's not gonna be any contamination of the water table. But if you look at some areas in Dare County that have canals everywhere and septic systems are within 50 feet of the canals, and you have low-lying areas, then that's an area that it needs to be done. There are parts of Kill Devil Hills that needs it, and there are parts that don't.
And my other question would be, what's the cost on this to
Very
the consumer?
expensive. Very expensive. Probably at least $10,000 per house. But it costs $5,000 to replace a septic system.
And is there a monthly fee?
There will be,
Okay.
but it'll save water. And it might offset it.
But the
It'll offset-
individual they'll be paying for water per month, and then they'll also be paying this fee, so.
Right, but they would use less potable water. It would offset it some. How much, I have no idea. No, but it'll be expensive. Anytime you try to do anything to remedy anything that's damaging our environment, it's tremendously expensive.
Okay.
But it works.
How much land does this require?
Pardon me?
How much land does this require?
Very little, because the disposal area is what's so large. You can take 2 acres of land and probably hook up, you could take 2 acres of land and convert 500 houses. I need Mike here to figure that. You can do that. I mean, really, all you have to have is enough land for the plant to fit on. And that would be something like not over an acre. Because you're using the existing drain fields that are already in place.
So at that point, you're looking at being able to remove it from the house. So the diagram that's up there now, 20, that would go to a treatment plant, a local treatment plant, not
Somewhere.
necessarily the KDH one, and then pumped back.
Come back, this septic tank would then be, you could pump it out, disinfect it. You really wouldn't have to, and it's a 2-step process. It's 2 permits. The permit for subsurface disposal comes from the Division of Health and Human Services. The permit to dispose of it as spray irrigation or surface disposal comes from Department of Water Resources. And you don't have to do both. You can just do the subsurface disposal, which is far safer than even the irrigation, which people have an aversion to that because they think somebody's gonna get sick or something. It happens on golf courses all day long, everywhere. And the fertilizer they use is far more dangerous than the water that they spray on a golf course. It's a solution to a problem, and it's probably the most practical solution. And you don't have to do it everywhere, you do it where you need it.
Right. And I know you say that it's needed in a lot of places, but do you know how many inches of sand are actually needed for a drain field, for a septic drain field?
There has to be 18 inches, a minimum of 18 inches separation from the drain lines to the water table, average water table, which I think is ridiculous, but, but you have to be 50 feet away from wetlands. Doesn't make any sense.
Eddie, if you, in this design, if you are taking the untreated waste to the treatment plant and then treating it there and sending, basically it's the gray water or whatever that's coming back through, do you still have to have, with the holding tank, does anything change with the size of the, oops, it just disappeared, the drain field or the repair area in
It
that,
could
since
be
you're not having untreated sewage in
It could
there?
be smaller if the
Okay.
state allows it, because the difference in, I think the county uses like 1.3 gallons per square foot a day. I don't know, they have a loading rate. In other words, the more pure the water, the more you can apply. And the more pure the water, the smaller area you need. So you can reduce the size of the drain field and leach field and repair area, but that's something that the Division of Health and Human Services, or you can apply more water because it's pure water. It doesn't matter. There's probably no limit to how much you can apply. The only limit would be was when it started raising the water table too high.
So there's a
You could allow people to use more of their backyard. You could probably not have to have a repair area. But then again, that's the details that will have to be worked out, and that's always is, the devil's in the details. But there's no doubt it's a viable system.
So the current septic tank would become a holding tank under this system?
Yes.
Okay. And then there's a section for the flow meter. Would there be a charge for using the non-potable water?
You could.
Okay.
The reason for that meter, you wouldn't want to send any more back. You need to, in theory, whatever comes out of the house, if 200 gallons a day comes out of the house, 200 gallons should go back. It could be more, it could be less, but in theory, it should be the same number.
But the homeowner wouldn't have control of that necessarily.
That
It would just
meter
be
would be
rated on what
controlled
their
by
fuel
whoever
is.
owns the system. And then you could charge for it, like half what the potable water costs, or give it could be free.
So where are you with this? What are your next steps?
What now?
Where are you with this? What are your next steps with vetting it?
Well, actually, getting it permitted through the state of North Carolina.
That's what you're in the process now,
And
currently?
yes, and will require some legislation. It will require some changes But the state of North Carolina says they believe it's viable, based on that email from David May and Ishwa Devkota. They think it's very viable.
Did I hear you mention one time before, Eddie, that this is a patentable system?
Well, I had them do the patent work because I didn't want to steal anybody else's idea, for one thing. That was one,
Right.
and yes, there's a patent applied for.
Okay, yeah, I thought you remember, you told me that once. It's interesting.
Well, thank you. My only encouragement is for the town to plan for the future, and, because the time will come. It's just a matter of time. We just don't know when. It may be here already. And it's not a quantity issue. There's quality and then there's quantity. It's gotta, these septic tanks are not working, regardless of what anybody says. And how bad it is the question. And at some point in time, you don't want this, kind of like cancer, you know, if you catch it early, you can cure it, you'll live. If you don't, you won't make it. And, you know, you don't want to get caught with your pants down, you might say. Thank you.
Well, thank you.
Yeah.
Any
Thank
other
you.
questions? for
No,
him?
no.
Okay.
That's it.
Thank
We'll
you,
end on
Eddie.
that note, Heidi.
Yeah.
Thanks,
All
Eddie.
right,
I
thank you
thought
very
you'd
much.
like that.
Thanks, Eddie.
Thank you again.
Thank you. Okay, we will move now on to new business item number 3, which is the 2015 NC-12 Virginia Dare Trail Crosswalk Study Report. Welcome, Pete.
Good evening.
Good evening.
I'm here to report to you, not to frighten you, and all pants are staying up, I'm hoping.
Thank you.
Thank you for the opportunity to be of service to the town in this way. You'll recall commissioning me to do this study back in June of this year. The original idea that we were working with was, would it make sense to equip some or all of our crosswalks on Virginia Dare Trail with what the Manual of Uniform Traffic Control Devices calls the R1-6, one of the series of regulatory signs in the MUTCD. And before I go any further, let me, for the record, introduce myself. I'm Pete Berkheimer of American Engineering, the firm that serves as your town engineer. I would also note that NCDOT's Division I traffic engineer Jason Davidson has joined us tonight at our request to give you, to the extent you might want it, the DOT division's perspective on this subject. And we think it's a very important subject, and if I have any regrets, it's that I didn't suggest to you that you take a careful look at this, and I applaud the Board of Commissioners and Commissioner Hogan for the initiative in looking at this. I think the broader idea of the study was to take a look for us to find a way to take our game up a little bit. We are not without measures in place now, as most jurisdictions are, and the DOT as the owner-operator of NC-12. But what we have now is the W11-2 diamond-shaped sign, typically in the fluorescent yellow-green color, with a diagonal down arrow plaque below it pointing down to the crosswalk. And the motorist gets that warning, or that notice that the crosswalk is there. And then a couple of times, generally near the town's borders, there's a notification that it is state law to yield to pedestrians in the crosswalk. There are options for that yield here to pedestrians to be done as an overhead mounted sign, but that's not a very feasible option in our town. We don't have a mast arm situation where you would have two poles and a couple of span wires, rather, spanning over the road with a sign suspended from it. Just isn't a very good option in our very windy conditions here. So these other signs that are at the essentially at or near the town limits alert the motorists that it is the state law that you've got to yield to motorists or to pedestrians that have gotten into the crosswalk. And then the W11-2s say, okay, you're here, you're at one, and so remember what you saw earlier, it's time to yield to pedestrians that are in the crosswalk. So the original purpose of the study was to fulfill the DOT requirement that if you're going to consider the special in-street system of pedestrian crosswalk markings, that you've got to do an engineering study, and this constitutes that study. And I started it with a completely open mind on this, and I had seen some of these in-street systems, and what I learned, again, you've read the report, I'm not going to go through every element of the report, but the gist of it is what we found is that they are better suited for mid-block locations. They're really a very nice solution when the crosswalk is in between two vehicular intersections, and all you're doing is saying, okay, there's going to be some people crossing mid-block here, and watch for them, and you actually put it right in the road where it's harder to miss. It's not over on the shoulder of the road where, yes, signs, many of our important signs are there, but there's some possibility for them to be lost in the clutter. No, these are actually mounted on flexible posts right in the street. Now, if they get hit, which would happen every once in a while, they get knocked over, and you replace the sign or reinstall the sign. The problem is we have a total of 17 crosswalks on Virginia Dare Trail within the limits of Kill Devil Hills. That's 17 out of a total of 27 possible places where there's some reason that you might want a goodly amount of pedestrian traffic to cross. The other 10 are beach accesses that don't happen to be served by a crosswalk. So of those 27 or so opportunities, 17 have crosswalks. 2 of those are at signalized intersections. So the solution there is a push-button pedestrian crossing signal. Of the other 15, there are 4 or 5 that could theoretically lend themselves to the in-street sign, either because they are mid-block or because something about the particulars of that intersection are such that they wouldn't be as susceptible to being run over. But the other 10 would be highly susceptible to being knocked over, certainly by large vehicles, but even by a pickup truck pulling a boat trailer. It would be very difficult. You'd hit it more than you'd miss it, just because of the geometry of that particular configuration of vehicle and trailer. So we found, again, there's certainly plenty of pedestrian traffic to support it, but that the in-street system didn't appear to us to be the best solution. You could use it for some of them, but in my experience, and I think Mr. Davidson would support this, driver expectations are for a certain degree of consistency. So it'll stand out better, it'll imprint itself better in the driver's mind, even though he may only be our guest for a given week. If he sees the same situation present itself every time he comes to a crosswalk, to the extent practical. So to have the in-street system at 5 of them and something different at 10, and then he crosses over into Nags Head or Kitty Hawk, maybe sees something a little bit different, isn't the ideal situation. So I sort of took a segue here and transitioned the study into the question of if we wanted to take our game up a little bit, if we wanted to do a little more to try to look out for the safety of our pedestrians, what would it be? And frankly, that's an evolving idea with me. What I've said in this report, which was actually written about 6 or 7 weeks ago, has evolved even some more as I've conferred with Mr. Davidson and with others. The basic idea as presented in the report was to do something consistent at every crosswalk, kind of like we do now, and then come a distance of 200, 250 feet upstream or ahead of that and let the driver know, okay, a crosswalk is coming. And my thought in the report was to actually say, let's do a modified version of the R16 right at the crossing. and use the W11-2, the diamond with the diagonal down arrow. Replace the diagonal down arrow with an ahead plaque saying, okay, this is the warning. That W means it's a warning sign as opposed to a regulatory sign. Let you know that that's coming a distance ahead. And 250 feet would amount to about 4 to 5 seconds if the vehicle is traveling right at the 35-mile-an-hour speed limit. But having looked into it further, what the pattern is on 12, to an extent anyway, because there isn't perfect consistency, but the predominant thing is for the W11-2 with the diagonal down arrow with the fluorescent green, yellow-green background is the thing you see more often than any place else, and not as an advance, but right at the crosswalk. So my thinking now is, let's do that, but that's kind of what we already have, so how do we take our game up a little bit? And my suggestion right now, to sort of sum up on this point, would be to increase the number of state law advisory signs to, instead of just having one at each end of town at around mileposts 5 and 10, that we add maybe 2 more intermediate to remind the driver that it is state law, because we aren't using the phrase state law in the W11-2. That's purely an icon, an image with the down arrow. And then in addition to that, it seemed to me that you could do the flashing LED sign would be quite the attention getter. Probably the closest proximity where you'd see that is at the Sanderling as you head on up towards Corolla, right near the county line. And those are available in several flavors. You can get them, and by the way, it isn't recommended. In fact, I don't even think it's consistent with good practice that these be steady burning. They're supposed to flash, and there's even a narrow range of the flashing interval, 50 to 60 times per minute. So one flavor is they just do that 24/7. And by the way, these are solar powered, so you're not going to pay electricity. You're not going to pay to run a Dominion NC powered drop or anything. They're going to run off a solar cell bank that is feeding a battery. And I understand they can go as long as maybe a week to 10 days of less than ideal sunshine or cloudy days. So again, that's been debugged. So first version, it flashes all the time, and that probably wouldn't go that long. The second version is the lights are off until a pedestrian pushes a button on the pole. And when he pushes that button, that unit talks to the sign across the street, which is controlling the other direction, and they both come on and start flashing at that time for a period of time. The third version, and probably the coolest one, and one that I think if you're interested in this, we probably ought to do a trial run of a couple of them, actually has a microwave-based sensor on the pole that detects the presence of pedestrians within the wait area just outside the crosswalk. Now, anybody who has motion detector lights at their house knows that these things aren't foolproof. I hope this is a better grade than the motion detectors that I buy at Lowe's or Home Depot for X dollars. They are supposed to be. They've supposedly improved the selectivity and the ability to reject signals from moving cars and other things and cats and dogs or what have you. But I didn't pursue this any more than just manufacturer's information and a little bit of web research because I didn't know what the board's response was going to be. However, in terms of cost per unit, or let's say per crosswalk, you'd be in the neighborhood of $1,100 or $1,200 for the straight, steady burning, flashing 24/7 installation, and then you go up to around $1,400 or so for the push-button version, and up to around $1,800 for the sensor-based version. So you could, that's, and again, I did it the way I didn't mean to. That's actually per sign, double that per crosswalk protected. So by the time you buy the pole, because you do furnish the pole when you do this, you're talking about somewhere around a little less than $3,000 at one end, up to a maximum of around $4,000 to protect one intersection with the sensor-driven unit. So if you wanted to try that, you could just go whole hog and install them on all our crosswalks, or you could pick a couple. Steve and I and the board could get together and pick a couple and do a trial installation and see how they're received. There's a lot of other recommendations in here, and findings as well. If you've got a reasonably considerate driver and a reasonably responsible group of pedestrians crossing, all is well, and that happens the majority of the time.
Yeah.
But there's so many pedestrians and so much traffic that all it takes is an inattentive driver and/or pedestrian, and a bad thing can happen, more often than we'd like it to happen. I did mention the importance of an educational component to this effort, and I found that I was late to the party. You folks already have some very nice resources, some of which you're aware of, and Greg, I don't know whether you want to maybe queue up one of them just as an example for the benefit of others in the audience. But I think these types of things should be given wide dissemination, especially to the pedestrians. If they see this on cable TV during,
When driving on the beach road, stop.
Stop at the crosswalk.
Stop at the crosswalk. Stop at the crosswalk. When driving on the beach road, stop at the crosswalk.
Stop at the crosswalk.
Stop at the crosswalk. All along Highway 12, stop at the crosswalk. Stop at the crosswalk.
Stop at the crosswalks.
When you see a pedestrian in a marked crosswalk, North Carolina law states you must yield and allow the pedestrian to cross. All along Highway 12, the beach road, signs are placed as reminders for motorists to stop and allow pedestrians to cross. However, many times drivers zoom right through.
Motorists can be ticketed for not stopping when there is a pedestrian in a marked crosswalk. Pedestrians should only cross at marked crosswalks. Be mindful of the traffic. Make sure you are seen. Don't assume that traffic will stop for you. On the 158 bypass, motorists and pedestrians should follow the traffic and crosswalk signals.
Stop at the crosswalk. Stop at the crosswalk.
Stop at the crosswalk.
Stop at the crosswalk.
The Outer Banks Bicycle and Pedestrian Safety Coalition wants everyone to be safe, have fun, and enjoy all the Outer Banks have to offer.
Would you like me to cue up the short video? Anybody have
pleasure of the board.
It's a 2008 crosswalk video. Or would you like to move on?
I think we're okay. I think we have some questions for
Okay.
Yeah.
Pete and,
Before I answer your questions, I'm wondering if Mr. Davidson would like to add to this. While he's coming up, you noticed in the report, there are some localities that may have not exactly followed MUTC guidelines in this regard. My recommendation to you humbly would be that the DOT are our partners. Let's work with them so that the motorist who doesn't necessarily know exactly which jurisdiction he or she is in sees as consistent and effective as practical a message as they go up and down the road. With that, Jason?
Thank you. I really don't have anything to add to what Mr. Burkheimer's working on. I just want to take the time to appreciate it, to thank you for, getting this started. I've been working with DOT for 15 years. I've been down here. When I first came to the division on the beach road, there was a sign at Jeanette's Pier. It said pedestrian crossing next 10 miles. It's evolved a lot since then, and I hope that the safety factor has increased along with that. I don't really have, like I said, I don't really have anything extra to add, but I just want to, thank you guys for getting this going, and hopefully we can apply it to, the sister towns next, Kitty Hawk, Nags Head, and apply it there, because we've got the same problems everywhere. And like I said, when I've been here for 15 years, I see it day in and day out. I needed some fresh perspective. It's been really nice. Thank you.
great.
Thank you.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, now I'm here for your questions, or we're here for your questions.
Okay.
I have a question.
Yes,
Do
sir.
the push button LED lights, can you get those to be red so it's more like a, like a stop sign type of flash?
You mean have the actual LEDs be red?
Yes.
I'm not sure. Everything I've seen suggests white, but that's a question I'll try to get the answer for.
And I can probably address that a little bit more, Pete.
Sure.
The use of the red would indicate stop, but in accordance with North Carolina state law, it is yield to pedestrians. That's why it's in the yellow flashing pattern and not the
Okay.
red.
If I might piggyback on that, one question that might have come to some people's minds is, isn't a flashing light going to be irritating to nearby anybody, maybe especially residences? And that first is one of the reasons why maybe the steady or the 24/7 flashing is not the best idea. But I would also want you to know that the one vendor that I'm looking at has sort of a visibility cone of about 20 degrees. Sort of like some of the LED style traffic signals you see are bright green when you're pretty close to looking at them head on, but when you begin to get a sideways look at them, they almost look like they're not on at all. So there is some of that to them, which I think would help.
When you were quoting a rough estimate of about $3,000, was that per intersection, or did that need to be doubled? Was that per sign on a
I
post,
first
and we need
quoted-
two?
I first quoted it as the individual sign and electronics that goes with it, and battery and solar. But for every crosswalk, you would double that. So
So
it's
it-
3,000 to 4,000, depending on which option you would pick.
The 3 to 4 includes the double?
It includes the doubling, yes.
Okay, so 51,000 is what 17 of those
If
would
you
be,
went
if
with-
we were doing
The 3,000
everything.
would get you, it's a little more than what you would need for the 24/7. It's maybe a little shy of what you'd need for the push button.
One thing I thought was really interesting in the study, and I think you found it interesting, I think you may have commented on this, was that the pattern of pedestrian crossing, which, you know, I think of our family too, when we cross, not everybody is nice packaged and unique. We all come to the side of the walk, we get everybody together, we're ready to cross at the same time. I mean, that's not human nature. You've got one family member that's ready to go onto the car, and they're not waiting for everyone else, and then you've got people straggling behind. The thought of the push button to actually maybe try to control groups more together so they are crossing in a more, you know, in a unit, that maybe or may not work. I'd be interested if there's any research out there where they do find that that helps with corralling before then you cross or not, by the fact of having to push a button, and I don't know if it would or would not, but I thought the finding in your research and then that option may marry itself well together.
It also, follow up on that, is it's okay to try stuff within limits. You don't want to do anything that's afoul of the METCD. But it occurred to me that if you had a push button, let's take a fairly high volume crossing like Heyman Boulevard crossing. If you had a little separate sign back up on the plaza, the concrete plaza there near where the porta-johns are, that sort of explain the etiquette and the practice of how to cross. You could encourage people to do that. And obviously, it's not going to be readable by anything but pedestrians essentially at a stop. But a lot of times you're waiting for a family member to wash their feet or use the restroom or what have you. And, you know, it could help avoid what I call EWS factor, which is what you're talking about. That stands for Everson Walton Swigert, which is the name of my youngest grandchild. And he's the exact bratty kid that would be stepping out in front of the main group to sort of tease the traffic by easing out into the crosswalk. And I love him to death, don't get me wrong, but, you know, if nobody's watching for somebody to do that, they may not have thought through what a negative effect that could have.
Absolutely.
When you were doing research, did you find any, I know in other places that I've visited and other countries have them, where the lights are actually in the road, where that way you'd only need maybe a couple lights, not necessarily directional, but within the, just embedded in the road, like the reflectors that we currently have?
Commissioner Appleman, I didn't see that, but the other as yet unnamed member of our research team, Director Albright there, took his research all the way to Maine just a couple of weeks ago and found that up there is some use of pavement markings, not lit pavement markings, but an icon, you know, the image of the pedestrian and a yield, the word yield, I believe, was there. And, you know, that has some issues with it too. It's not exactly MUTCD, you know, they were kind of freelancing it, but there is a standard yield symbol, the shark tooth, you know, the diamond or half diamond looking shark tooth yield symbol that could perhaps be used. And by the way, it may be a good time to let the board know that We've also found out through District One that there is brewing a pavement overlay of Virginia Dare Trail, which I think they want to go out to bids on late this calendar year for work for award early next calendar year, but for actual physical work not to begin until after next summer season. So while we're getting our signage straight, they'll be getting their pavement straight. And of course, all the marking will have to be done again, but if there's any deficiencies there, it'd be a good time to get all that tightened up. So we'll stand by for whatever guidance, you've got for us. Maybe just to think about it, or maybe you want us to do something.
I think we're okay with, I'm okay with looking at the information again and thinking about what we're gonna do before, hopefully have something, a plan in place before our next, well before the next, summer season, and maybe get something up and running in April or May or something like that. We could do something right now and it may not end up being right, so I think we ought to think about it. And of course, look at the money issue. That reminds me, speaking of money, is it your understanding, Pete, that any of this that we would be doing would be totally at our expense?
Jason might be the better recipient of that question. Not to put you on the spot or anything, buddy.
And that's fine. And, there's a certain amount of it, that we can cost share in, but I will let you know, my primary maintenance budget is 57% less than it was last year. We're gonna struggle to make payroll, so we won't have a whole lot of extra funds for stuff like this. And Steve and I had discussed earlier in the summer if there was any kind of, programs or anything that had some money tied to it that would be able to fund this type of work, and I couldn't find any at the time, but we were right in the midst of the summer and I didn't have a lot of time to really work on it, so, but, this winter, we hope if there's something available, we'll be able to get it, but, and we'll be able to help you as best we can from that.
That's something else we could use some time for, is to make sure we're not missing any money out there that we could be using.
Pete, for the field observations that you all did, where you were tracking the volume requirement and you're looking for the 25, did you actually do that at all 17, or did you?
No, ma'am, it was representative, and it was me personally, and again, I think you'll recall this was done on a pretty slim budget.
Right, of course.
It would have been about 4 times the $3,500 it was if we had tried to count every crossing on a couple of representative days. But I checked Hayman Pier a couple of times. I checked Collington, and I checked a couple of the mid-block locations as well. And again, it's very time of day driven, and of course it's seasonal. And where you do use the in-street signs in a resort setting such as this, the expectation is you'd pull them out of the road during the off-season.
Sure.
They're designed to lend themselves for that. But once again, I'm hoping that we can consider going a different direction than that, to really see if we can't be the example on the Outer Banks.
Great. It's the pleasure of the board to kind of vet this a little bit, think about it, review the information.
So,
And then do you want to put this on a future agenda? And if so, which agenda? What's the pleasure of the board?
Is January too late to revisit it, do you think, or?
I would think we would want to do it before then, because if we wait till January, by the time it could be implemented, I think we'd be well into the season, but that might just be
Yeah.
me.
What would the lead, if we decided to sample a couple of intersections or a couple of crosswalks, what would be the lead time on obtaining the signage and?
If we were to go with this one particular vendor and use an LED type situation, that you'd want to safely allow about a month for him to produce it, but then there's the decision process among us of exactly which ones we want to do. So you got that, and then you got about a month to get them. Now, once they're in, it's really not much harder than installing an ordinary sign, but you'd want to calibrate it, ahead of the high season. I'd like to see it in by Easter if it's going to go in.
And then probably
Maybe
we wouldn't have
Easter
time
is
to
the
do some
proving grounds
education
of it.
awareness
Right.
too.
You could,
Easter's
January
early this
would
year.
make it, but that'd be tight. December might be better.
What about,
Yeah,
put it on for November, or the first meeting in December?
Yeah. First one in December would be good.
First meeting in December?
Okay, that's good.
That's good.
Sounds good to me.
Sounds
Does that
good.
work, Debbie? Do you need anything else from that? Okay.
The 14th, December the 14th.
Ooh,
Okay.
that's right. That is gonna be late. Okay, I'm just thinking, and if you're making a decision, you're trying to do that over Christmas and New Year's when things slow down a little for ordering, but maybe that's not an issue. I guess ordering would be fine.
I think the vendor would be fine with that. I don't think he shuts down for the holidays like a road contractor.
Yeah.
Good, okay.
Might actually be a good time to order.
Okay, that's right. That's some work. Okay.
All right.
December 14th, great. Thank you very much.
Thank you both.
Thank
Great
you.
information.
Yeah,
Thank
thanks.
you.
Appreciate
you.
you coming. Okay, good information.
Yeah.
All right, you'll recall we removed item number 5, so next is item number 6, appointments. This is under new business. Hold on, I'm sorry, 4, we skipped over 4. Pete's still with us for 4. The recommendation, wait a minute, how did we skip 4 too? The recommendation of award for the 2015-2016 Streets, Drainage, and Right-of-Way Improvements Project. So back to you.
Okay, I'll be much briefer on this one. We're still getting good bids. They were, the low bid is RPC Contracting Incorporated, our friends, and they were like 5.5% over my engineer's estimate, which still represents good bidding. We had a couple of other bids that the lower 2 bids were close, and then another was a little bit higher. But I still think they represent good value. I think if any of you remember these love letters I write y'all every bid, there's a little bit of a trend. I mean, we're not in the depths of the recession anymore. Prices are creeping up a little bit. It's helpful that liquid asphalt prices are stable instead of some of that craziness they did about 5 years ago. That's helped moderate it some. But bottom line is, I think these are good bids. Before you are, is the award to RPC, and I have a small contract in there for my part of the construction phase, which represents that a certain amount of the day-to-day portion of it is to be shifted to town staff. So that's a bit smaller than what you might have seen for my construction phase work, which I'm absolutely fine with. So beyond that, I'll answer any questions you might have about this, and the town staff can tell you about the contingencies and, you know, which fund it's coming from and all of that, if you like.
Questions?
Yeah.
Questions?
No.
No? Okay, I think this looks good. I'm happy that we're continuing to move forward with the work that we need to do with our streets and drainage improvements.
This is a small one compared to the one we just finished up a couple of months ago. That was
That's really
big,
big.
but it's hurricane season, and even though it seems to be a pretty quiet one, I sure do feel better with that project under our belts, because we're ready to take a hit now. Don't want to tempt fate, but.
Yeah, let's not say
we're-
it that way.
Let me rephrase that. Strike that. We're in better shape than we were
There we go.
before that project in that
Handle a little
particular
extra
That's
area.
water.
right.
That's right.
Okay. Would anyone like to make a motion?
I'll make a motion that we approve the contract with RPC Contracting for the 2015-16 street drainage and right-of-way improvements project in the amount of $456,200 and authorize its execution by the town manager. And that we approve the engineering services agreement with American Engineering in the total amount of $19,000. That we approve a 6% not to exceed contingency for the streets and drainage portion of the project, and that we authorize expenditures of $201,197.55 from the Street Capital Reserve Fund. $32,360 will be water fund related expenses, and $267,192.85 will be expended from the POW bill line. $201,197.55 will be expended from the Street Capital Reserve Fund for a total of $500,750.40. I hope I got that right.
Good.
Is
I'll
there
second.
a second, okay. Any discussion or questions? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Great, thank you. Thank you.
Thank you
for your
very much.
presentation.
And a final postscript that Steve suggested I make, and he's exactly right. Things are proceeding on a good schedule with the town of Nags Head on our joint project for East and West 8th Street, and we'll be back to you approximately December with some action on that. Thank you very much.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Let's see. Now we will move on to the appointments. We have appointments to 3 of our different boards and commissions. The first is to the Dangerous Animal Appeal Board. There's an alternate term that's currently held by Jerry Farless. Mr. Farless desires to be considered for reappointment for this, for a 3-year alternate position.
I make a motion that we reappoint Mr. Farless.
I'll second.
Any discussion? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. The next is the Community Appearance Commission. There are 4 seats up for the regular term appointments on this group. Skip Jones, Sue Kelly, Chris Merrick, and Melinda Magowski. Each of these individuals request to be reconsidered for another term. And a motion would be in order.
I make a motion that we reappoint Skip Jones, Chris Merrick, Melinda Magowski, and Sue Kelly.
I'll second that.
Any discussion? All those in favor, please signal by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. And last, on the Historic Landmarks Commission, 1 regular 3-year term is available. Ms. Toni Dorn currently holds that seat, and she also would like to be reappointed. A motion would be in order to fill her 3-year term position.
I'll make a motion that we reappoint Ms. Dorn for the Historic Landmarks Commission position.
I'll second that.
Any discussion? All those in favor, please signal by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay. I think that's great. I know, I guess, Chris and Sue, Chris is still here too, so welcome. And thanks, guys, for wanting to serve again and for all the work that you're doing on that and for our other volunteers that are serving in the town. When I was reviewing this and seeing that everybody wanted to be reappointed, I thought that was a great sign, because you guys do a lot of hard work, and it's nice that you're stepping back up to the plate for more. So thanks.
Now, Chris, you might want to know that before you came, there were some kind words said about you by Sue. So. And they're well deserved.
Okay, next, I'll cover it up. We will move on then to Commissioner's agenda. Commissioner Midget?
I want to thank the police for entertaining me on another ride along this summer. I appreciate it. It was pretty quiet. We only had to write 1 speeding ticket for someone doing 50 and a 45 on Collington Road, and I thought the mayor was the only one that went that fast down that street.
What?
Just kidding. Yeah, that's
I'm
all. That's
blushing.
all for me. But I appreciate it. Thanks.
Did
again.
you say 50 and a 45?
Oh, 35.
Okay, I was like,
Yeah.
really? We would give a ticket for 50
No,
and a 45?
it's-
Okay.
It was
good,
50
thank
and
you.
35. That's
Okay, I was thinking, wow, I'm glad we corrected that, because I'm thinking people are going to be really upset hearing that. I would be,
No,
and I
no.
would get that ticket. I do go 50 sometimes
Don't
and
say it's okay.
45.
Don't say it's
Sorry,
okay.
that is still speeding, but
Dana's back.
Don't
See
say
what I mean?
anyway, yes, you're right. I'm sorry. I'm being honest. Okay, 50 and a 35.
Yeah, it's 50 and a 35.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
Much more sense.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Commissioner Appleman?
Nothing that I can incriminate myself with.
Okay. Commissioner Rebottom?
I just want to thank everybody who came out to the meeting, the public meeting that we had here for Collington Road. I think it was very well attended. Michael, you were here as
Yeah.
well, and I think the folks that were here I hope they got all their questions answered. I know there were lots of people here that had some concerns, and I think most of the ones that I talked to anyway were able to talk to the folks from DOT and get their concerns answered. So I think that's a project that's moving along, and I think it's definitely something that needs to happen, and that will solve a lot of problems. And of course, it's nothing that happens is going to make everybody happy, but I think that's something that they're definitely willing to work with folks on kind of see that they can do as best they can to make things work. That was, I think, more probably happened at that meeting in all my years of working, that I think there was a little more give and take there. I don't know about you, Greg, but I saw there were some people really working together to make things happen at that meeting. So if it actually comes to fruition, I will be very, very pleased, because that's a project that really needs to happen. So I think that worked out well. And I also wanted to let everybody know that there's going to be our annual Alzheimer's Walk is going to be happening at Spring Arbor on October the 3rd. Registration will be at 9:30 and the walk will start at 10 o'clock. So anybody who wants to walk is welcome to do that. It's we have a Facebook page, and we also, I don't know that we've actually got a website, but it's at Spring Arbor. So if you have any questions, you can call 449-4455 and talk to Diane Denny, or you can get up with me at the Bomb Center. I've actually got some forms there for anybody who wants to do that. The money that's raised will actually go for respite care for folks directly here in Dare County. So it's a great cause, and it'll also be providing the dementia task force that we have there at Spring Arbor, that's sponsored through Healthy Carolinians, actually already does some education. So we're doing a lot of really, really good work there. So I want to thank the police chief and the police department, and the fire chief is always there. The fire department's there too usually. So we usually have a really good turnout. So thank y'all for that. And we are not going to have a cookout the night before. They're going to do barbecue the day of. So I actually think. Are you selling tickets for that? I do not have tickets, but there are tickets at the Bomb Center. So I was telling them earlier, I actually am not on, I didn't make it on that committee. I actually stepped back from a committee. So Mary's on that committee. So the lady at the front desk at the Bomb Center actually has those tickets. But I think you can actually come and get tickets. You can show up and get it there too, but I'll make sure I get you some tickets. So, and I think that's it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Mayor Pro Tem?
Yeah, I would like to give an update on our goings-on back at the bomb track with the disc golf course. The mayor and myself met with Debbie and Assistant Manager Sean Murphy about 2 weeks ago, I think it was. Yep, just the four of us there, am I correct? I think. And we discussed it, and we kind of came up with a plan that we think is going to work. Now, first of all, let me say that we've got a minimum of $15,000 pledged to us right now, donations, and perhaps as much as maybe close to 25,000 pledged to us. But after we discussed that a bit, we want to make sure that we have some pretty solid cost estimates for the project before we start accepting any money from anybody. In the off chance, which I don't think would happen, that the expenses would be such that we would decide for whatever reason that we wouldn't be able to do it. I don't see that happening, as I already said. But so what we're going to do is we're going to get estimates on the parking lot, including materials and such, and then we're going to be having porta potties, which we got the okay for having those. And we've got solid information on what portion of it needs to be handicapped for ADA, which is has to be a hard surface front to the first hole and from the last hole to the parking area, and that shouldn't be a problem. So we're going to get estimates on the equipment that we're going to need, the tee boxes and the baskets and such, and perhaps any contract services that we would need to pay for. And we've had some offers for some free services from a couple of firms in the town, and a lot of the credit goes to Daryl Davies for that. He's been working on it real hard, along with Derek Dow. I think it's looking pretty good for us right now. I wouldn't anticipate anything being open and running quite yet, but in addition to the money that's already been pledged, we have a program set up where local businesses could sponsor a hole, or as many as they want, for a set fee. And it would cover a period of time. And there would be a marker at the hole that would recognize them and thank them for their support. And as soon as we get some more information on that, I'll bring it to you and try to keep you up to date on it. And it was discussed at the planning board meeting on Tuesday, but I was out of town, and I believe the mayor attended. Did you want to add anything?
I think it'll be coming to us at our next meeting. What was presented to the planning board?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, that's it.
Anything else?
No, that's it.
Okay, thank you. We'll move on to mayor's agenda. I have several items. The first one, though, is in your packet, and Chief Tilley is here. So together, we will introduce Fire Prevention Week, which is October 4th through the 10th. We have a proclamation here in our packet that certainly we recommend adopting, so we can declare October 4th through the 10th as Fire Prevention Week in Kildare Hills. Chief's going to share with us some of the activities that we're going to have going on during that time. So I'll turn it over to you, and thanks.
Well, thank you, Mayor. Commissioners, I think Greg had a short video to play, if he can find it. He's looking stumped over there right now.
Well,
It's all right, Greg.
While he's looking for that, so he's not feeling so pressured, we could look at this proclamation and maybe take a motion to adopt the proclamation.
I make a motion that we approve this proclamation for National Fire Prevention Week.
I'll second.
Any discussion? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay.
Well, this year's theme is Hear the Beat Where You Sleep. Every bedroom needs a working smoke alarm. It's the National Campaign for Fire Prevention Week. Here it is. If you're ready.
Greetings, everyone! Sparky the Fire Dog here with the moment you've all been waiting for! The official theme for this year's Fire Prevention Week campaign. Are you ready? I know I am. Oh, drum roll, please! Nice. Oh, it's Hear the Beep Where You Sleep. Every bedroom needs a working smoke alarm! You and I know every bedroom needs a smoke alarm, but guess what? Most people don't. So we need to spread the word about just how important it is, especially since half of all U.S. home fire deaths happen at night when people are sleeping. So, FirePreventionWeek.org is your source for a whole bunch of materials and resources on this year's Fire Prevention Week campaign. Hear the beep where you sleep. Every bedroom needs a working smoke alarm.
Thanks, Greg. Fire Prevention Week comes about as a result of the Chicago fire of 1871. 15,000 structures burned and 250 people lost their life as a result of that tragic event. The fire service uses this opportunity to educate and enlighten the public on the dangers of fire. Throughout the country, fire service will have different initiatives. Your fire department will be going into the public schools or the elementary schools throughout that week to educate our children on some of the things that we learned as kids. Stop, drop, and roll, practice a fire home safety drill, don't play with matches, and just have fun with the kids as we talk about fire safety. Of course, we'll have an open house on Monday, the 5th, from 6 to 8 at the fire station, where you'll get a chance to meet your firefighters and share a fire safety message. And also, we partnered with Lowe's for that following Saturday. We'll be building wooden fire trucks with the little kids while sharing a fire safety message also. So we're looking forward to this week.
Good. Any questions?
You did a good job with the puppet, Chief.
That was national. I didn't do that. John Tyler probably could have done it, but that was a national thing. Yeah. But thank you.
It sort of looked like it, that's why I was wondering.
He looks a little better.
Tough crowd. Thank you very much, Chief. Okay. A couple other items. One, you may have seen a news release that was put out, and I wonder if we could have Dave Elder possibly here at the next meeting. Sure. NOAA recognized really the efforts spearheaded by Dave and the work that he's done with rip current awareness, and they came down I guess it was in August, and presented a award to Dave, and I went out there to support him and accept it as well on the beach. And anyway, really great recognition. They're incredibly proud of the work that really he's done a lot right here in Kettleville Hills. They did a lot of videoing that day, so I'd love for him to tell us a little bit more about what was done that day, and then we can present him or the town officially with the plaque that where Noah recognized the work that's happening right here in Kettleville Hills. So if we could do that, that would be wonderful. And I guess these flyers, I don't know if they're out yet, or they'll start, I'm sure it'll be on Facebook very soon if it's not already out there. We now have the long-awaited for annual ice cream social. The date is announced. It is Tuesday, October 13th at Aviation Park from 4:30 to 7 p.m. This is always a really great event. I guess we brought it back, 2 or 3 years ago, and great way to catch up with neighbors and friends and celebrate the wonderful things that happen in our beautiful town. A couple of the events that are going to go on. We are going to be treated to music from the First Light High School and First Light Middle School jazz bands. That's a nice treat. There will be a raffle to benefit the Fire Auxiliary, because this is hosted by, I guess, the board, but town staff and the Fire Auxiliary. We'll have a roller derby demo by the Kettleville Derby Brigade, a human foosball demonstration by OBX Storm. They did that once last year. And of course, food, hot dogs, hamburgers, and ice cream. So please, please, please tell your friends, come out and enjoy this really fun event. So, and thank you, staff.
If you've noticed, Mary's given the volunteer staff a new title. They're called the Scoopers and Shakers.
Nice.
So come meet all the scoopers and shakers of Kettleville Hills. That's great. Okay. Let's see, real quick, an update, because you may have seen it some on social media about Fresh Pond. We did have a meeting with town manager and mayor of Kettleville Hills, also the town manager and mayor of Nags Head, and Aaron McCall with the Nature Conservancy to discuss Fresh Pond. And you know Matt Byrne, one of our KDH citizens, who's been very passionate about, I think what he's titled Free Fresh Pond. But basically the result of that very productive discussion between the two towns, because as you may or may not know, Fresh Pond sits in both towns. And so we went into the meeting saying, hey, as we're going to discuss what may happen in the future with Fresh Pond, it would be great if we're on the same page, because otherwise that uniquely, could have some very it would be really challenging if we're not on the same page. Anyway, kind of long story short, what came out of that is Aaron McCall had a great suggestion from the Nature Conservancy about using the property and pathways that they have to build on. Basically, it's just cutting a pathway to lead from their parking and their paths down to Fresh Pond. I guess it's on the west side of Fresh Pond. So he's vetting that with the folks at the Nature Conservancy and looking into that. So we will have more information in future months about that. I mean, he had some great ideas about using student volunteers that come in every year, I guess spring break, college spring break time, that could help cut a new path. So really, it's kind of a no-cost option to be able to do this, but in a very controlled way, that you're not just opening it up to everything, but yet you still would give legal, viable access in a controlled way. So we'll see what happens. It certainly will come to this board for discussion, but the purpose of that meeting was to even figure out where we go first, and how, because it's such a big topic. So we'll look forward to Aaron coming and sharing whatever he finds, and then we'll have a discussion, a full discussion at the board level. But just wanted to share that with you, because you might hear or see things on social media, and that's where it is. So any questions on that?
Do we have a time frame for Aaron's response? Or?
He actually left with his ready to go and begin the process. I think he's very interested in, as the mayor stated, if it does come to fruition, using those spring break students, and he has several levels he has to go through. So I think he'll do it as quickly as he can.
Okay, good.
Okay, that's all I have. Sorry, move on to the town manager's agenda.
Just one item, it's not in your packet. I received a phone call this morning from a local reporter that was asking for comments that the town may have concerning a draft report from, Greg, help me if I get the name wrong, Moffett Nichols? On stormwater outfalls in Dare County. And I had not seen the report, so I really wasn't in a position to comment, but they did share it with me, and I shared it with Greg and Steve Albright. It's 200 and something pages, and it was in a Dropbox, so it was very difficult to even try to get our arms around it to make any comment. But what I'm just bringing to the board's attention, in case you do hear something about it, as soon as we do get a final report, because this was a draft report, it was commissioned by Diener for them to do this. And there are some recommendations. The only one that I can really speak to is they recommend that the town of Kill Devil Hills look look into the Septic Health Initiative program that Nags Head started a number of years ago. We did look at that when Nags Head started it, but the board at the time chose not to move in that direction, but perhaps it's time that we revisit that, since Nags Head does have some history with it, and we can certainly get that information. But I did want to just share with you that as soon as that is available, we'll get it to the board for your guidance on whatever recommendations for Kill Devil Hills that it may have. I did point out that the outfalls are DRT, and the septic tanks are governed by the Dare County Health Department. So the town's role is very limited, but we certainly would want to be at the table with any discussion. So, thank you.
Great, thank you. Anything else?
No, ma'am.
Okay. Town attorney's agenda?
No, ma'am, nothing.
Okay. Consent agenda.
Yes, ma'am. 4 items. The first is the minutes from the August 10th, 2015. The second is the Porta-John report. At the last meeting, the staff was asked to provide a recommendation for the placement of a Porta-John along Bay Drive, and our suggestion was there at the Heyman Street access, and by consensus of the board, we've moved forward with that. It has been installed, and I think the lattice has been put up around it, so hopefully it's attractive. And then additional locations for placing Porta-Johns at the ocean accesses will be evaluated with recommendations included in the 16-17 fiscal year budget. The consent agenda approval will just place this information in the record of the meeting. The budget amendments, first one, number 2, is to record the encumbrances outstanding as of June 30th, 2015. Number 3 is to provide funds needed for Casper system for undercover officer. And 4 is to provide funds for additional beach sampling and analysis. This had to do with our beach nourishment project. Number 4 is consolidation, Dare County Consolidation Committee. By consensus of the board, you agreed for Mayor Davies, Mayor Pro Tem Hogan, and myself to represent Kill Devil Hills on the Dare County newly formed Consolidation of Services Committee. Our first meeting will be this coming Thursday at 10 o'clock. That's the 24th of September. The meetings, or this meeting, I'm assuming the future meetings, will be held in room 168. That's the first floor of the Dare County Administrative Building in Manteo, and they are open to the public. Staff recommends approval of the consent agenda as presented.
So, excuse me, a motion to approve?
I make a motion that we approve the consent agenda.
I'll second.
Okay, any discussion? I would just add one thing under, just as a comment real quick, under the Porta-John request. I was attending a meeting, the meeting is irrelevant, but someone was so excited to come share a voicemail message with me. I said, okay, anyway, it was someone that left her a message that was running along Bay Drive last weekend and was so excited to find the Porta-John that was placed there. And she's like, I'm so grateful that there's one now. So she just had to share that. So
little things.
Exactly. But anyway, I figured I would share that with you all. So. Okay, there was a motion and a second. All those in favor of approving the consent agenda, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, thank you. All right, we are now to the second time that's set aside for public comment this evening. Is there anyone that wishes to speak at this public comment time? Anyone? No one? Okay, well, then thank you all for coming, and I guess a motion to adjourn is in order.
So moved?
Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, thank you. Good night.
Thanks, everybody, for coming.